Yeah. Jerry Gidel is ready to assess the commodity markets, and he is going to tell you what's going to happen next, right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, before you tell us what's going to happen next, please, as usual, wrap it up the week. We had a very slow market week.
Oh yes, yes. Well, interestingly enough, the tail end of last week and on to Monday night and the holiday, there was lots of building concerns about our planning progress, things of that nature going on, and maybe we're and even well, there's some rains into the early part of the week, but the middle part of the week was definitely pretty quiet, and I think that ultimately, once the market didn't find any emotional additions to the forecast, it kind of led into some profit taking from there. The weekly planning progress actually came in stronger than I was anticipating, considering the kind of weather we had. It must have been some very aggressive plannings early in the week from there. So I think that's the kind of the feature that kind of helped lead to some further reductions here with and prices of 83% on corn was right at the average of 82. Now, I think a lot of people still haven't really realized that our 5-year average has not really uh, has 2 years in there that are very poor, 2019 and 2022, but it's still following the statistics. And on beans, actually, we are was running 68% versus 63% here on those numbers from last week. So everything's hunky dory. I don't know that that's the case, but that's the kind of thing that kind of sometimes happens here when our investors are not really uh, uh, astute on what's going on with some of our numbers at times. But that being said, that's important that we're sure glad they're around at this point, no doubt about it. But in the short term, it can be a little frustrating at points. The weekly exports shipments were okay, but nothing spectacular. Only one that kind of impressed me was wheat at 14.9 million. And that kind of giving us the last little burst of activity out the door here because next Monday's data will be pretty well completing the crop year for wheat, and that looks like it's going to be oh close to the USDA's 720 million number. It might be 710, 715, something like that on the actual shipments. We have a certain amount of things that move across the border that don't get on the inspection list. So that's going to be interesting as it goes along on that. But the other issues are is that the uh, activity this week kept looking out the side door here, looking at the U.S. situation of that. Our weekly exports also on Thursday didn't really provide us a lot of excitement from there. They were solid, but unfortunately, right now, the Chinese have not been very active in the U.S. markets, so I think that's also playing against our price activity. There was actually there's been a couple of positive things going on here in the wheat market, but it sure didn't get a lot of help to the prices because they're really staring out the window here on when the U.S. harvest is going to begin. Traditionally, at this point, Texas is getting rolling on their harvest, but that's interesting. They've had a lot of weather down there and so I think to some extent we're going to have a slower harvest here in U.S. hard red winter wheat, and that, and so that's going to be an interesting twist here as to how we start to get these data in. And we could even have some wheat that got lost because of the straw being knocked down and getting the crop kind of messed up. But in the short term here, the attitude is really zeroing in on the uh, harvest coming, not so much what size the crop will be. We still have had some issues out here west of I-35 in Kansas and Oklahoma that haven't had the best moisture, and the heat's definitely stayed around in those states. So I'm not sure that we're where our yields are going to be. By the way, the USDA's crop report this month, in June, will be on the 12th. So we've got some lots of data and observations coming at us here over the next 10 days to 2 weeks type situation. So the markets are going to be watching for lots of indications here in the US market and also what's going on around the world.
Yes, so for now, we don't have those kind of changes in the South American crop that one could expect, and for the coming weeks, the U.S. might reach 10% of planting, right? Of course.
Yeah, that's the thing as we stare into these things going forward. The South American crops, uh, the USDA has been somewhat reluctant to follow some of the emotions of what's going on and from the expectations of South America. But we ended up having a kind of a respected North American firm, Morgan Stanley, actually put out some expectations on soybeans that maybe there were 5 million metric tons of reduced production in Brazil's crop at this point. Combination of all the rains that happened in Rio Grande do Sul that damaged some of the field crops by 3 million. And they also, and I think it's an important factor to remember, is that there was a 2 million potential losses of beans that were in silos and elevators and that was in some of these areas that had some extreme flooding, which type situations. So you get the bottom of your bin wet, it can impact a lot more than just a few bushels when it's inside. So that's one indication there. I think on soybeans, it's going to be an ongoing battle here, though. The There's also been some reports about Brazil's second crop corn, just getting started here on its uh, corn harvesting there in Mato Grosso. And so that's going to be watched very, very closely. I think there's a lot of commentary even down into Mato Grosso del Sol and Paraná that the second crop corn that was planted in mid to late February on in that it's not had the best of conditions, but right now the USDA is not acknowledging a lot of problems there, and I guess we're going to have to get more reports from South America on what that crop is about. But that's the kind of stuff we deal with. Getting actual, as they say, ground truth versus what the emotions might or might not be ahead of harvest, both in South America and in the U.S.
Now, given that situation, would you be bullish on soybeans for the coming weeks?
Well, uh, right now, at least the technical part of this market has really taken kind of a slip this week. We're right down to key support areas here around $12 on the July, and also the 445 in spot nearby corn. In that, I'm reluctant to be real negative down here because of what you just mentioned. The issues we're starting to hear in South America still could be a factor. Unfortunately, we'll have to see what kind of remaining harvest or remaining planting we might have. We had our soybeans at only about 2/3 done. They might this coming week, I expect that we'll probably be in the 75 to 80% area. And we do need to make sure that we do see some open weather here to get that. Early part of next week has some rain activity on that. Same thing on the corn. Our planting progress at this point, we're 83% last week. We'll probably be at 90 to 92% probably in our progress on that, which is important. That the 10% seems like, oh, there's not much left to go, but 10% plantings that get stretched out for another 10 days could definitely start straining our national average yields, things like that. So the U.S. planting progress will be important. South American reports will be important along the way. And also just what's going on in the wheat market. At this time of year, we usually have a seasonal decline in wheat as we go into harvest time, based so much on the U.S. But it's going to be interesting. We've had uh, numbers coming out from a couple different places here. Of course, Russia. A lot of people have taken their number and output down from 92 or 93 million metric tons down to the low 80s at this point. The Russian government's still at 85. But the other interesting feature in this thing is going to be India. Uh, they're going to have an election this weekend, and the current prime minister has been very mum about what he's going to do here. He's had a significant decline in his stocks of wheat because people, well, just to calm down the prices here during the late April and March period when they were going through harvest and that. And so there's lots of indications that there might be a spout of buying, a spurt, I should say, of buying from India in these markets. At this point, I think they're also hoping that there could be a slippage in the world prices at this point. But I think they're also going to be nervous about not getting some coverage out in front of them. And right now, at least, there's lots of talk that they might be in importing in the 10 to 12 million metric ton level, which hasn't happened in 5 or 6 years. So that's an interesting twist here in the wheat market. But we've got lots of different balls in the air here. So I guess I'm anticipating some support to be coming in here after this pullback this week. But right now, at least, we'll just have to see what our investors are thinking these days. Where they have been kind of fickled here recently. First, they had to blow out of their shorts, and then they got somewhat long, and then now it's been sluggish this week. So I kind of anticipate this thing to still be choppy going forward. But I would also tell producers here they really do need to go ahead and get some of their final sales behind us here at this point. I've been talking about utilizing these rallies up here. You're probably still in the 10 to 15% level that we got to keep an eye on and utilize price recoveries here. Weather-wise, the U.S. Once you get the kind of the crop in the ground, it's usually somewhat sluggish. So mid to late June is not a good time seasonally to be optimistic. So keep an eye on these markets, and we get some jump backs in prices towards the recent highs. Definitely would be limiting the amount of supplies you might have yet to sell for the old crop going forward.
Now, one matter that we kind of skipped was the weather in Iowa. I read a report saying that it's the first time in several years that there isn't a drought there.
Yeah, the Iowa situation, particularly in the eastern and northeastern part of the state, has been on even dry through this winter, but it has improved. Actually, there's been some updates there about actually having too much rain, and that does always end up having an impact on potential crop sizes, all right, as we go forward here. The biggest thing is that interestingly enough, uh, it slows down some of your development. You've got uh, and that so it could push some of their uh, pollination into the hotter part of the month of July. Soybeans are I don't know that soybeans just kind of hunker down if it's too wet, and that he'll wait for some better conditions. So I don't know how directly it impacts on soybean yields at this point. Usually, more for soybeans, more rain is better than less rain. So from there, but on corn, it can be a detriment to potential yields longer term. So keep that's something to also keep in mind. And actually, some of those same conditions I think have impacted uh, parts of southeast Minnesota, Wisconsin. So it's just not all Iowa that's been a little too wet here in the last month.
All right, we'll check it back next week. We'll follow the markets and expect you to come back to watch us and put the thumbs up.
Yes, yes. Well, let's anticipate kind of a choppy market here for the near term here. And as I said, this market's got a lot of things looking at, both South American issues and North American issues in that. And of course, we don't ever want to forget about the Black Sea. So all of those three things will be in the market activity as we go forward. So keep an eye and listen to the ground here about what's going on in these other places.
Thank you, Jerry.
Take care.